Morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. This is a debka.com article. What is Putin's plans for Syria? And I think you'll be interested to know what his actual plans are. Putin plans to end the Alawite hegemony in Damascus. Now, who is the Alawite hegemony? Well, that is Bashar Assad's family group. So and the Alawites have controlled Syria, even though I believe they're not even the majority people group in Syria, but they have ruled and reigned under Bashar Assad for a long time. Putin's plan apparently is to end the reign of Bashar Assad. So that is significant. Is he going to take out Bashar Assad? And he further plans to evict pro-Iranian Shiite militias, including Hezbollah. So let's have a little bit read of this and see just what he's thinking. Putin has drawn up his plan for the Sochi conference. He will put it before Netanyahu when they meet Monday, January 29th. So this is in reference to an older meeting here. Debka File reports that the Russian has prepared a plan for Syria's post-war for presentation. This is what he put forth at this conference. Moscow has taken into account 1,600 Syrian government and opposition participants. Some rebel groups have announced a boycott. Debka reports that absentees are pro-Assad and pro-Iranian groups. So they're not happy with, basically, with what Putin is planning here. And this is significant because ultimately we know the big power hand in Syria is Russia right now. Early democratic elections to the presidency and parliament guaranteed by Moscow to be genuinely democratic with all parts of the population allowed for the first time to vote. This is part of his plans. So it goes. Those plans are substantially as follows as it relates to Putin's plans for Syria. The new constitution will reflect the demographic changes overtaking the country in the 7-year war. The largest group, Sunnis, will win majority representation, while Bashar Assad's small Alawite sect will no longer be privileged as a ruling minority. Assad will automatically lose his dominant role. A new national Syrian army is to be established. So apparently Putin wants to establish a Syrian army, since most young Syrians of military age refused to join Assad's army in the last few years. Most military units exist only on paper. Once again, the country's demographic structure will be represented at all ranks of the new army. In all these proposals, the Russians conferred intensively with Riyadh and Cairo, the former as a key Arab supporter of the Syrian anti-Assad opposition. Again, significant that the suggestion is that Putin is going to take Bashar Assad out of power. Isaiah 17 would certainly take him out of power, because the power of Bashar Assad is really centered around Damascus, and Isaiah 17 is all about Damascus becoming a ruinous heap. And I think that would be a significant turning point there. Only on one point did the Saudis lean hard on the Russians to alter their first blueprint. They maintained that as it stood, the regions to be allotted to the various armies' control were not clearly laid out. Moscow replied that the new Syrian army would be taking over, and I read that to be, Russian army at that point in time, certainly under the main control of Russia. That's what I would read into that. In a word, Putin had agreed to show the door to Iranian forces and all imported Shiite militias operating there under Iranian command. That's interesting because it seems like Russia doesn't really want to so much work with Iran. They know Iran is fomenting trouble. And we can see this in the Ezekiel 38 reference, where the hooks in the jaw of Russia, multiple hooks, the hooks plural, the fact that Russia is dragged into it with these hooks. They don't really want to come into this battle, and they know Iran is starting something, but they have previous agreements with Iran to provide support, and so they're quite literally dragged into the Ezekiel 38 battle by Iran. So it goes on. This was the nub of information that Putin proposes to relay to Netanyahu. The same day as the Sochi conference, Netanyahu will also speak to the host to make sure this measure ironclad, so that Tehran and Hezbollah will never find a loophole for their return to Syria. If Putin succeeds in getting part of his Syrian peace plan accepted at the Sochi conference, he will have brought off a major feat. And so this is something that has happened And this is from the dated this particular one is from January 28th. But like I say, it's interesting to see what the plan of Putin is, and you can kind of understand why the hooks in the jaw are there. If there was no hooks in the jaw, you'd see Putin just completely colluding, cooperating with Bashar Assad, with Iran, and coming down voluntarily because they were completely on board with what Bashar Assad and what Iran was doing. We can see here that Putin, leader of Russia at this point in time, doesn't really like what they're doing and is trying to move away. He's trying to get Iran out of Syria, for one, trying to get Bashar Assad out of power so that there's some sort of peace and security in Syria. But again, we look at what Bible prophecy says, and it says they're going to be drawn into the battle. They're going to be drawn. They won't want to get pulled into the battle, but they will be pulled into the Syrian battle with Israel. So I think this is really proof, when you look at what his plans were, Putin's, this is proof that Bible prophecy will be fulfilled as it's stated, where the hooks in the jaw represent really Gog Magog being drawn into it and not really wanting to be drawn into this particular battle. So that's interesting, and I think these plans are being worked out as we speak right now. Russia sees this current date, February 21, Russia sees Iran in there building up military, and Iran getting ready to go to battle with Israel. We're going to take an article in the next, take a look at an article in the next video where Iran is setting the stage and getting Hezbollah and Hamas in Gaza ready and telling them to hold off until all their forces are ready to attack Israel. So stay tuned for that one. But I think we can see, we understand why there has to be hooks in the jaw for Putin here, because of what his background plan is in Syria to deal with Syria as a whole. So stay tuned for that one. I'll do that one next.